Hi, everyone. I'm David Hicks. I'm Senior Vice President of Upstream Energy at IHS Markit. And today I am joined by a number of my colleagues here in the upstream energy world. Paul Markwell, who's Vice President of Insight and Research. Leanne Todd, who is a Senior Vice President of North America and Global Software. And Judd Jacobs, who leads our Upstream Technology and Innovation Group. Hi, everyone. Great to see everybody today. So we're going to do a slightly introductory view of digital transformation, and obviously we're going to talk about where it is today for the energy industry, and of course we can't talk about it without talking about the impacts of COVID and where we think things are headed. This is an introductory session. We're going to take a number of interesting deep dives down particular aspects of the digital transformation evolution, revolution, if you will. So let's just start by kind of framing this up a little bit if we can. Digital transformation is a term that is used quite a bit now. It's thrown around relatively loosely. How do we sort of look at it now? How do we frame this up? How do we define digital transformation as we see it within our industry? Paul, why don't you take that one?
Well, it's an interesting question. There may be more than one answer. I give you the way I think about it. Digital transformation is almost like an enablement of the organization and an organization to do things differently. So there's a technology component to it, and we'll talk, I think, today about some of those different technologies. But really, it's about the technology application to connect different parts of an organization. I mean, an organizational system, from the core functions within the organization, the operational aspects, the field operations, the partners, and all the ecosystem, that works around getting an operation and a company moving. That's the way I like to think of it. So it's the application rather than the technology.
Great. And is it, where do we see it on the cycle? We have been talking about it for a number of years. Obviously, technology has been a big part of our industry for a long time. So it's not as if we just recognized a few years ago that doing things in a slightly more digital manner made sense. But where are we on the maturity scale at this point? Judd?
Okay, I'll jump in, David. And to answer that question, it might help to have a bit of a historical perspective, because we think about digital transformation, along the lines of how Paul defined it. Really, coming out of the 2014, 2015 downturn, it really got a big boost at that time. And just as the industry was cutting back on formal technology development in terms of research and development and partnerships and alliances, it continued to invest and actually doubled down on its investment in digital transformation. And largely, you see that there was a pretty good alignment with the pressures in the industry at the time. If you think about cost management, greater efficiencies, those correlate very well to digital transformation and how the companies were applying it. They were also looking to see what could scale rapidly with minimal investment. And so it was at this time back in 2014, 2015, 2016, that the industry really began to invest. And this is the time you began to see the formation of a number of these data science groups within independents. And the expectation, I don't think those pressures are going away in our current period. And so I think it will take on a different flavor, but I think digital transformation, continuing investment in digitalization is something that will probably continue here over at least the next few years.
So you raised kind of an interesting point about the ecosystem or the environment of companies that make up our world. And of course, it's gone through quite a bit of transformation itself through the previous downturn, and then of course the COVID and price war collapse. Leanne, part of your world is so intensely focused in North America, which is its own environment. Is digital transformation, I mean, you're obviously dealing with the very largest companies, but a huge population of middle and small independents. How do you view the digital transformation impact in that space?
Yeah, and I think, you do have different systems around the world of how people are working with the digital transformation. So if you look at North America, lots of data. That's one of the big differentials compared to some of the other areas. More mature in the fields, lots of years as Judd went back in the history and what's been happening with collecting it. So you've got the perfect, I'm going to call it storm happening right now. lots of data. The computing power is now here. The data science has caught up. You have so many companies that are surrounding outside of oil and gas that they're actually able to take a lot of that technology into the oil and gas companies now for what we're saying is the automation piece. Being able to work with massive amounts of data, layering in automation and modeling that they wouldn't have been able to see before. Computers couldn't have handled that. You can now. And I think the last 2 years, that's been another huge uplift to it. When I look at the North America, the investment has been so intense, again, because the fields are so developed. It has to be who can do it at the least cost. So they're always in this constant technology race for that to be able to win and to be able to keep investors and to be able to move through that. You go globally, a much different story of how much data is there. It's obviously starting to catch up. They're more where they'll have more seismic data. What are you going to start to do with that? Well, there's huge advancements in the data science aspect of working with seismic data now, and lots of investment going into that to help with the field development and where those next projects are going to be. Automation from taking the historical information of, offshore drilling and what they can start to do. Again, the computing power. We were joking in our data science team, even a year ago, I think we were blowing up some of the computers trying to work even graphically with some of this. Companies are so heavily partnered now into E&P companies and very eager to work with their data, to train models, to bring those advancements, because it obviously helps those independent companies working with E&Ps. And I'm seeing that globally, not just in North America. So they're very invested in it, because that technology also in training those models is helping other industries and vice versa. So much of that crossover is going, and just lots of investment from that aspect.
Yeah, that's great. So what would we say are the key questions then for any business, any company today in regards to digital transformation and what they're doing? What do we think are the key aspects right now that companies need to be paying attention to?
I can jump in, David, if you'd like. I think, some of the things, and Leanne touched upon this a little bit, but who should you be partnering with? And I think there's a recognition that not only can't you do this internally, you're kind of moving on to areas, but there's a real benefit in beginning to partner or kind of work with startups, a much broader innovation ecosystem than we might have seen in the past. But it's not just partnering with anyone. It's kind of identifying those folks and those companies that can best contribute to where you're looking. Second is, where should you be focusing? And I think there's been a bit of a change. If you look at, the last few years, a lot of it's been tactical. A lot of it's been, kind of looking at, kind of how do you improve your pump performance? How do you improve your drilling performance? I think now what you're beginning to see is not only a much deeper dive into the subsurface, but I think you're also beginning to see a much more integrated view as well across the E&P lifecycle and across functions as well. And I think therefore, companies need to determine where to target their efforts, because you can't do everything, and you really need to begin to think about, well, where does the value lie within your particular organization?
I think, David, you asked the question of what the big and up and coming. I think, Judd, you covered it really well with it's the data management. If they can't bring all of this data they have been collecting, it starts to change how they're going to work in the automation and the data sciences. One of the biggest things for any E&P is predictive models. So you need a lot of historical data to be able to help with what that predictive model is going to be. You need a lot to be able to feed that and to quickly work with that. So I'm seeing the biggest question companies are asking is just that foundation. What's the house of the foundation? How are they going to work with that to make it and be able to know how those predictive models are working? So when they go to look for investment or for their next field planning piece, they got it as close. Testing against that, looking at, what the risk for the company is going to be. So that is a big deal.
Yeah, I think sometimes we think of digital transformation as almost like a tsunami of opportunity, lots of different things, technologies, solutions, lots of potential partners. And I think the one big question, one more critical question really is to really be clear as an operator where you see the value opportunity. Access to the data, rapid manipulation of data is always going to be very, very high on the agenda. It's almost sort of a platform in which to build things. But equally, if you think about it more from an operational point of view, understanding where the opportunities are for efficiencies, particularly in the down cycle, whether that's from transportation, logistics, from process optimization, from reducing emissions, whatever the specific drivers are. I think understanding the solutions around that is really important, and not to get too lost in the myriad of other things that can distract you.
That's great. Yeah, and I think, as we've talked about a lot, at the end of the day, there's a efficiency and cost efficiency theme that pretty much makes a foundation as well. And one of the things we talk about is, capital expenditures, and this things drop in the oil and gas industry, capital expenditures go down, capacity goes down, and this concept of using digital transformation to somehow break that one-to-one relationship so that you might spend less but actually be more productive. Great. Well, I want to thank everybody. This was an introductory session. I think there's lots of interesting topics we will now dive into with a little more specificity. But thanks everyone for joining today, and look forward to our future sessions.
Great. Thanks, David.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.